Welcome to my Chinese oval tutorial. To begin, I want to tell you a little bit about the background of this technique. Where does it come from? Well, as the name suggests, it comes from China. I found this little beaded gourd in a tiny shop in Guangzhou, a plastic bead shop in Guangzhou many years ago, probably going on 20 years ago now. And I was fascinated by it. I wanted to learn the techniques that are involved. At the top, you see, this is a beautiful oval. This is the oval I'm calling the Chinese oval. All I did when I got home was I, just separated these two. I created an oval by itself, not attached to this sphere. I'll be teaching this sphere in future videos. It's probably not like any sphere you've ever seen, I don't think. It's Chinese too, obviously. And I'll be teaching it in a future video. Super easy. Anyway. But for today, we're just going to do this oval. Fast, easy, beautiful, elegant structure, okay? What other beads can you make it in? Well, I have made it in sterling silver beads, okay? These are, I don't know, 5 millimeter oxidized sterling silver beads, which when you polish them are really beautiful. You can wear this on a neck wire, as a necklace element. You can probably even make this size into a pair of earrings, though it is kind of large, okay? So sterling, other metal beads, Czech rondelles, okay? I think these are these 6x9 rondelles? I think so. Again, I have made these into necklace elements and customers love them. They love mixing and matching them and finding different colors and etc., okay? Czech smaller rondelles, I believe these are 5x7. In a fantastic sort of lavender color edged with what I would call copper. Okay, incredibly beautiful. Have made these as earrings. They do sell well. And lastly, still yet more Czech rondelles. I forget what size these are. You guys will know better than I do. Maybe 5x8, I'm just guessing. Edged in like a coppery something or other, okay? So you can make them in plastic, you can make them in wood. What you want are beads that have reasonably large holes. They don't have to be super gigantic, but they've got to be a good size, and also your beads need to be even, and they need to be more spherical than they are flat, more spherical than shaped like a pancake, okay, or like a donut, all right? So you're looking for large holes, even beads, even shapes, and reasonably spherical beads, okay? Anyway, I will see you in the next. Wait, there's more that I want to tell you. I want to show you a beaded gourd that was made in China easily 100 years ago. Let me move these guys aside. I love this piece. I felt incredibly lucky to find it also in Guangzhou in a tiny little, well, it would have to be called a junk shop, down a back alley that I ventured into when I got lost, which was the greatest thing in the world. Because I found this for 50 cents or something. It looks like a gourd, but it's a gourd, kind of more like a vase or a bottle than a gourd, a bottle gourd, really. Completely different structures, as you can see, than this one, okay? Two completely different structures stitched with wire. At some point in the future, I will work to figure these out. I don't know how they render. I don't know if they render evenly or what. But I just wanted to show you this so you can see that there's a lot of history to beadwork in China, going back a couple of thousand years, okay? So this is a recent piece from about 2005, 2006. This is from, I'm going to guess, around 1900, okay? And wait, one more piece. I just have to show you. Okay, it's not a gourd, but it's a little beaded bird, okay? Also from China. Maybe around 1900 or so, okay? Just a little, toy, maybe a bead model of a bird. Not in a polyhedron, a spherical or an oval beaded structure, but still really incredibly beautiful. The history of beadwork in China is amazing, and I hope to get around to writing a book on it one day, someday, before I leave this life, okay? So speaking of leaving, I'm going to leave this video now and see you in the next one. So before we start building our first Chinese oval, I want to tell you about the structure so you understand how it's built, and that'll make it easier for you to build it. Each Chinese oval has 45 beads. you add 25 of those beads by creating the equator here. The equator consists of 5 rings of 6 beads each, okay? This is the equator right here, okay? The North Pole and the South Pole, or you can think of them as end caps, each contain 10 more beads, okay? So that's 25, 35, 45. The end caps, or the North Pole, South Pole, each contains 6 rings of 5 beads each. Okay, so you know if you're on an end cap, you are only adding rings of 5 beads, okay? Or at a pole, North Pole, South Pole, okay? How do we get started building this structure? We start with a ring of 6 beads, okay? Then we add 3 more rings of 6 beads to create a hexagonal ladder with 4 hexagons in it, okay? And then we close this hexagonal ladder by adding a 5th ring of 6 beads, okay? And then we create, this is basically a tube. It's a hexagonal ladder tube. And this is the equator. Now, after we get this built, the rest is really easy. We just build the North Pole here and the South Pole here, and then we reinforce. Now, I'm using size 8 metal beads, okay? And this is what they look like in the tube here. Oh, I just love these colors, and they render beautifully in this structure here. You can also make them in 11s. Here is a size 11, kind of this close to the same color, pretty much the same color. There's also another size. I think they have size 8 in this same color. I'm going to put some links down below in the show notes. If you're not familiar with these metal beads, they're apparently made in America. Fabulous, beautiful finishes. I don't know how they wear. I don't know how they last, how these finishes last. I haven't used them long enough to know how they last, but oh boy, they're so beautiful. They're worth trying, okay? So that's it. Brief understanding of how this structure is formed, okay, and how many beads it has, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, let's get started. I've already created the first ring of 6 beads, okay? I've reinforced them. I've gone around each bead in the ring and about 3 times because I like it to have a good base to work from. I'm going to get in position to build the next ring of 6. Doesn't matter at all which bead you build it from at this point in time, okay? I'm going to pick up 5 beads. And then I'm going to stitch back through this bead here, okay? And then pull tightly. I'm not going to spend a lot of time reinforcing this ring of 6 or other rings of 6 because we're going to do a lot of reinforcing at the end. Or let me say that I usually save a lot of my reinforcing for the end after the entire structure is built so that I can reinforce evenly. All right, so I'm just reinforcing once by going back around through each bead once. All right, and now I'm going to add the 3rd ring of 6 beads, and in this case it does matter which bead you are building from. Okay, I'm building from the top here. Okay, so I'm coming out of this bead here. I'm going to add 5 beads, circle back around, and go through this same bead in the opposite direction. Now, for those of you who are advanced beaders and you know how to create a hexagonal ladder, just go ahead and create your hexagonal ladder with 4 hexagons in it, okay? Now, it's always a good idea to count when you're building your hexagons because sometimes you end up with a hexagon made of 5 beads like I just got here, okay? So that's wrong. It's going to cause enormous trouble for you later on. So you want to undo it and make sure that you have the correct number of beads. Okay, so I'm going to add 1 bead here and go back around and create a true hexagon, okay? So check it, make sure it looks right. If it looks right, go ahead, reinforce it once. Go back through each bead in the ring once. All right. All right, there we go. This is what it looks like now with 3. Let's add another one, another ring of 6 beads. Again, it does matter where you start building this. You want to build it in a direct line with this bead here, okay? So that you get an even hexagonal ladder. This is an ancient type of approach in beadwork all over the world. Ladders, you know, right angle weave ladders, hexagonal ladders, octagonal ladders, so many different, you know, numbers of beads can be turned into ladders. I'm sure you know ladder stitch, right? That's making a ladder with 1 bead per stitch. All right, so I'm going to go around this once, this ring once, to create another good sturdy anchor for building the 5th ring. All right, so here's what it looks like now. I always think it's good. It's good when beads scatter, right? When the beads refuse to stay contained. It means you're really working. All right, so we're going to add, we have 4 rings of 6 right now, okay? Fast and easy. We're going to create the 5th ring of 6 beads, not by adding 5 beads here, but by adding 2 beads here and 2 beads here. Let me show you. You have to begin in the correct position. The correct position is the bead that is farthest north, which is the bead we've been using to build our new rings thus far. Now, there are many ways to do this, okay? The way I learned decades ago, like when I was a teenager, is to go like this, you know, especially if you're a beginner. Add 2 beads here, and then go through this bead here. All right, but feel free to use any way that you like to close your ladder, all right? I do want to make it very easy for you beginners to understand, because this is very much a easy beginning technique. All right, so add 2 more beads here. All right, make a nice pretty little pattern if you want to. And then go through this bead here. All right, and then when we pull, we will discover that we have created a 5th ring of 6 beads. We've created a hexagonal tube, okay? Same as this one here, right? All we need to do now is reinforce it. Just make sure that the beads are reasonably tight, okay? So we go back through each bead in this 5th ring of 6 beads, at least once, possibly twice. And then after we finish this, that's when the real fun starts, okay? Because we can see the rest of the structure taking shape. All right, looking good. Now, it doesn't matter which one of these rings we start building the North Pole from, but we are always going to be splitting 2 beads. So this is a pair of beads here, and this is a pair of beads here. And we're always going to split them when we form new rings from now on, okay? So we have split this pair. I'm going to add 3 beads and then go back through, split this pair and go back through this bead. Okay, add 3 beads. go back through this bead, pull. And what have we got here? We've got the beautiful tapering effect, okay, that you see in one of these Chinese ovals, okay? Beautifully tapered structure. All right, now we're going to go through this bead, although truth to tell, it doesn't matter which bead you go through. You want to navigate to the next pair of 2 beads over, to the left, to the right, whichever, and split that pair of beads, all right? Now we're in position to add the second ring of 5 beads. We only need to add 2 beads now, because one of those 3 of the 5 beads are already in place, and we only need to add 2. So, okay, we've added those 2. So we have 1 ring of 5 and a second ring of 5. We're going to now get into position to add the third ring of 5 beads. We know that we need to navigate over to this pair of beads here and split this pair, okay? Doesn't matter how you get there, but you want to get over to where you can split the next pair, okay? And go like this. Here we are splitting the next pair. Now 3 of the beads in the next ring of 5 beads are in place. So we're only going to add 2. There we go. It's beautiful. See how fast this structure goes? I mean, I love it, okay? It is the reinforcing that does take time. So 3 rings of 5 beads are in place. We're going to create our 4th ring by splitting the next pair of beads and adding 2 beads, okay? So go like that. All right, now we're going to navigate over, and we are not going to see 2 beads that we need to split. Instead, we're going to see a sort of a partial ring of 4 beads, okay? That we're going to add a 5th bead to create the North Pole. So 1 bead is in place, 2, 3. We're going to add number 4 and go back through number 5, okay? Let's circle around to get into the position where we can add that 1 final bead that completes the North Pole. And if you're not sure, at any point in time, play a game I call Ask the Beads, okay? String on 1 bead and do a test. Bend it down to where it should be. Go like this and say, what do the beads say? Do the beads approve or do the beads not approve? Well, in this case, the beads approve, okay? Now, if I went over here or something, the beads would not approve because I would end up with a ring of 6 beads. So play the game of Ask the Beads. How do I create my last ring of 5 beads? And the beads will tell you every time. The beads will tell you. Okay, we have now created 5 rings of 5 beads, okay? What remains for the North Pole is just to navigate up to the very top and stitch around these 5 beads at the top, okay? Which creates the north part of the North Pole. I don't know what that should be called, but all 5 of those beads are in place, and we are just stitching around them. I hope that I'm holding this in a way that you can see clearly and easily, okay? There we go, and pull. Oops, we have to go through the next bead too. All right, so more than half of this structure is built. The equator is built and the North Pole is built, okay? It's looking good. Our next challenge is to navigate any way we want to. Get down to build, to be in position to build the South Pole by splitting 2 beads. It doesn't matter how you get there, trust me. You can take a long route, you can take a short route, you can take any route that makes sense to you. All right. Now you're going to want to flip the structure over so you can work with it. You can build the South Pole. Now we're going to split these 2 beads and we're going to add 3 beads to create the first, to complete the first ring of 5 beads in the South Pole. Split this pair of beads, okay, by going back through this bead here. All right, see, our first ring of 5 beads in the South Pole is now in place. We're going to navigate left. You could also navigate right to get into position to split the next pair of beads. Now, for our second ring, we know that 3 beads are already in place, so we only have to add 2. It's getting easier. I love how these metal beads have nice large holes, right? But not too large. They're just the right size. All right, let's get into position to add the third ring. Navigate over, split this pair, add 2 beads. Awesome. All right, navigate over to get into position to add the 4th ring of 5 beads. Start by splitting this pair of beads. Add 2 beads. Go through this bead. Not sure? Again, it's okay. Play the ask the bead game. String on your 2 beads, string on 3 beads, string on 12 beads, and ask the beads, does this work for you? You know, and they will tell you every time if you're forming a ring of 5 beads or a ring of 6 or whatever. All right, so just pretend that you're putting them into position and ask them, is this correct or not? Watch for the pattern that you're building. All right, so now we're on the 5th ring. We only have to add 1 bead. I love it. We're almost done. All right. Let's add 1 bead to close out this ring of 5 beads. All right. And you're going to know already from having done the North Pole that for the South Pole, you also have to navigate to the very top of the South Pole. And you got to stitch around the 5 beads that are waiting for you there at the very, very tip of the South Pole, wanting to be stitched together so that the structure can be cohesive, okay? Nicely formed, all right? So stitching through a few more times. And that's it for the Chinese oval. That's all it takes, really. Now, well, that's not all it takes. You have to start reinforcing now. You see how floppy, how wimpy, I want to use the word wimpy, how wimpy this structure is right now. That's not how I like to build them. I keep going with these structures. I keep reinforcing until I get a very, very firm structure that even when you press on it a lot, it doesn't move. Of course, you know, I'm used to selling to customers, and if they pick up an element and it's squishy, they're not going to buy it, okay? Or an earring, they're not going to buy it. It's got to be well made, all right? However, You may not want to make your structures as tight as I make mine, because maybe you don't have to sell them to customers who are paying good money. All right. So what's left for this is reinforcing. There is no correct way to reinforce except by going from bead to bead. Do not cross over, do not cross through with the thread through an empty space. You're going to leave an ugly line of thread there. Just go from bead to bead to bead to bead until the oval is as stiff as you want yours to be. Okay, that's all there is to it. You have just completed your first Chinese oval. Congratulations, and I will see you in the next tutorial.